Hey there, and welcome back. We're Joel and Michelle, the Wandering Hearts, and we've been traveling now almost for 6 years full time.
Yeah.
And for the last few years, we have been super excited to get to Southeast Asia, and we finally made it.
Yeah. So we just wrapped up 8 months, specifically in Thailand and Vietnam. And yeah, so we just wanted to kind of go over some of our honest thoughts about what it's like living there, especially as slow travelers, traveling full time, versus, obviously differences between that and then just when you're there for like a week or two, like on vacation.
hmm Yeah, so this video is really geared towards first timers to Thailand and Vietnam, and we're going to combine all the essential tips and kind of real life insights that we
Mhm.
picked up along the way living there, and also just some simple things that make life a little bit easier, and also some challenges that you might not expect.
Yeah, so basically, this is like all the things that we wish we knew before traveling to Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
So, of course, first off, if you're new here, which most of you are, looking at our YouTube statistics, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Also, check out our newsletter as well if you want some more tips and things like of travel related, especially slow travel related. So also we've got a lot of other videos too. Again, if you're new, there's lots of other stuff you can check out on the channel, and specifically our Thailand or Vietnam series. So now let's go ahead and start off with some of the more boring stuff like visas. So for Thailand, most countries get a 60-day visa on arrival, which is really, really convenient. Also note you can extend that by another 30 days too, which is what we ended up doing when we were there. Now, as far as Vietnam's concerned, you're more likely going to have to apply for an e-visa online before you go. It's actually a really simple process, but definitely don't leave it to the last minute because we inadvertently did that. And yeah, let's just say that it was a mistake that ended up like snowballing big time. It's all on the channel if you want to see what happened there. But next, let's talk about when to go.
Yeah, so with Asia, timing is
Mhm.
definitely everything. Try to visit between November and February for the driest months and usually the least humid weather in Thailand,
Mhm.
or at least that's what we found. And if you want to kind of avoid the burning season, I would focus most of your time on the south of Thailand.
Yeah, it's like the islands.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so burning season really is no longer just in the north. It does affect the central part of the country as well, and it did affect our time there when we were living in Wahin.
Yeah, and so like in our experience, we found that burning season actually started quite a bit earlier than we had read previously. I think we had previously read it was like maybe like February through March or something like that, but we
hmm
found that actually it was already starting in December where we were. We were in Wahin, which is in the central part, and that basically runs from December all the way through March is like kind of like the bulk of it. Your peak is going to be like December, January, is what we've found out. Now, the air
Yeah.
quality gets really, really bad, and a lot of it is from agricultural burning, like the crops and things like that. And it's not just burning from Thailand, but it's also from some of the surrounding countries as well.
hmm
Now, you might be familiar with, you may have seen news things where like Bangkok is over and over again, like the most polluted like city in the world or something like that. Usually those headlines come from December and January. When
hmm
it does hit, there's days where it becomes like the worst. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's something to consider if you're going to be spending a lot of time there.
hmm For Vietnam, it is a little bit different. For the best weather, visit the central and north from about mid February to May.
Mhm.
And in the south, I would visit then from November until about April. And then as for burning season, you're more likely to experience just more air pollution and quite a bit high UV radiation.
Yeah.
So we experienced this a lot when we were in Da Nang. So make sure that you bring your sunscreen because you will need it.
Yeah. So another thing to consider before you go is vaccinations. You definitely want to check with your doctor a few months ahead of time before your trip because some of the vaccinations that you might need might take several shots. So, for instance, like for what we did is we basically made sure we're up to date on your standard travel vaccines like hepatitis A or B, your tetanus, diphtheria. Also, you might want to consider maybe something like typhoid or yellow fever if you're planning to go, especially if you're planning to go to like spend a lot more time in like more rural areas or maybe kind of like jungles and stuff like that.
hmm
Like I said, you definitely want to plan ahead because I think especially the Hep A and B, it takes a couple shots for your immunity to fully get up.
As far as packing, we would just recommend to pack light. I
Mhm.
mean, like Southeast Asia is hot
Yeah.
pretty much all year round. And if you need to pick up some things in Thailand and Vietnam, clothing is going to be very inexpensive.
Mhm.
And one thing that I would recommend that you pack, or you can actually buy there, is a sarong. And that is like this one.
I'll model it for you.
Yeah, so I bought this in Thailand and I love it. It's really pretty and it acts as a cover up, and you can also use it as a skirt or then even when you're at the beach
Oh yeah.
to sit down on. So yeah, there's multiple ways you can use that.
And we also recommend bringing a hat with you. The sun can be quite intense, and if you're like me and have a little bit of thinning action going on back there, uh, it'll save you from having to go through a lot of aloe. Another thing to think about too is for outlets and plug adapters. Most likely you're not going to need one because it's really cool is that they have like these dual, like a North American standard and European standard outlets almost everywhere. So generally you probably won't need one, but if you do find that you need an adapter, don't worry about it. You can get those pretty much anywhere and they're really, really affordable.
Mhm. Now, as far as toiletries, I would recommend to bring some with you to get you started. And then you can probably pick up some along the way. But just be aware that in Thailand and Vietnam, I think most of Southeast Asia, a lot of the toiletries and also sunscreen do have whitening agents in them. So that is just something to be aware of.
Let's get into like more of the real talk stuff, right? Like this is the stuff that can be maybe a little bit more of a shock if you're not prepared for it, especially if it's your first time in Asia. Starting with infrastructure, sidewalks in places, they're there, but they're generally not for walking. um, Usually you find a lot of people parking their scooters there, setting up food stalls, or maybe even being used as outdoor seating for a restaurant or whatever, which basically means you find yourself walking in the street a lot.
Mhm.
So you're dodging motorbikes and cars and everything else.
As far as traffic lights and stop signs, you won't really find too much of those. They'll just be on kind of the main bigger roads. And then in Vietnam, kind of the rule of the road there is that you just honk. Like everybody honks as they're going through an intersection, or if you're, going to pass somebody or you're behind somebody, it's not aggressive. It's just to let, people know that you're there. Um, if you're in the car or the bike, or even if you're walking, they will honk at you.
Yeah, that took me a minute to get used to because I get startled really easily. And so constantly like the honking nonstop was just like really putting me on edge. But you'll get used to it as well. It's just like I did.
Yeah, so also in Thailand, traffic is on the left-hand side of the road. So always make sure that you look both ways before you cross the street or even attempt to step into traffic.
Yeah, yeah, don't get hit.
Hmm.
Another thing with the daily life is that you might experience maybe some power outages, especially in maybe some more of the local neighborhoods. We actually experienced this maybe really only a handful of times, and they were usually pretty short. They were just
Hmm.
maybe an hour or two at a time,
Hmm.
which isn't too big of a deal. Unless, of course, you're working from maybe your apartment or whatever, like we do a lot, and then you rely on AC, and that can kind of get hot. So, just something to think about when you're doing that.
Yeah, so and as far as like the heat and humidity, you will have a lot of smells
Yeah.
that you will experience when you're walking around in Thailand and Vietnam. The garbage sits out, and yeah, just because of the heat, it will, yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be kind of stinky. And you'll also see your fair share of rats, bugs, and mosquitoes are definitely a constant battle in Asia. Always have bug spray with you or spray up before you leave your apartment.
Yeah, one thing we noticed too is that a lot of the restaurants that we'd go to, they almost all usually had at least like a fan blowing to
Mhm.
help kind of keep the mosquitoes away.
Mhm.
Or often they would always have a like mosquito repellent either sitting on the table or they would bring it to you if you asked for it because it's very, very common.
Yeah.
Another thing to think about too, though, is that you don't want to be drinking the tap water, and this is pretty universal. We found both in uh, Thailand and Vietnam. Bottled water is really cheap and available pretty much everywhere, and you can get it in the small sizes all the way up to like the 20-liter things of water too. And also, like for instance, in Thailand, we found it to be uh, really, really easy because they have water filling stations like almost everywhere. In fact, I think even like both of the apartments that we stayed in had them just stay downstairs by the door.
Mhm.
So you can just, what we do is just grab a couple of the, maybe some of the medium size or larger, like 1.5 liter bottles. We'd buy those, drink those, and just refill those. And that way you kind of don't have to worry about, collecting a whole bunch of bottles and all of that extra plastic waste either. And it's super cheap. It's like just pennies on the dollar. So now let's talk about getting around, or basically how do you navigate this like organized chaos? Now, in big cities like Bangkok, public transport is actually really, really great. You've got the BTS, which is the SkyTrain, and then you also have the MRT, which is the subway. They're all really efficient, they're clean, and they're also really easy to use. You can even pay with a debit or credit card. Just be sure that if you do that, you make sure you use the same debit or credit card on your way out. Otherwise, you won't be getting out. Now, getting around from city to city in both countries is actually pretty easy as well. Both countries have a good train and bus systems available. They can get you pretty much anywhere you want to go. Also, there's additional private transportation options as well that you can take advantage of too.
Yeah, so we actually use the buses and train to get from Hua Hin to Bangkok
Mhm.
back and forth, and that was pretty easy. And we use private transportation in Vietnam to get around without any trouble.
For everything else, getting around town is really easy. Just using rideshare apps is probably your best bet. In Thailand, for instance, you got Grab and you got Bolt. Now in Vietnam, it's all pretty much mostly Grab, although there is a new one on the market here that's Sang SM, and that's XANH. And these are lifesavers too, especially for getting around affordably, and especially if you're like us and you don't like to have to haggle with taxi drivers or anything like that.
Yeah. Now, if you do want to take the classic kind of tuk tuk ride or a taxi, just always make sure that you negotiate the price before you get in. And it helps to actually check the price on Grab first. So you
Mhm.
kind of have like a baseline, like you know what it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
Usually, in our experience, I think it's about twice as much. I think we found
yeah,
for tuk tuk. So,
yeah.
but we did take them every once in a while.
I think you definitely should. You have to at
Yeah.
least take them at least once if you're gonna. It's like it's part of the like
Yeah.
the a ritual or whatever. Now, as far as scooters are concerned, it's probably going to be really tempting to rent one. And unless you have experience on a scooter, we definitely don't recommend doing that. That's where most tourists and most locals end up getting into a lot of accidents, especially in both of those countries. Um, Especially if you're in the big cities, don't do it. It's gonna be it's a lot of chaos. Maybe the country's a little different because you don't have as much traffic, um, but traffic can be intense. Also, if you do decide to do one, like you're going to do some exploring, or whatever, some of the smaller towns or maybe even the islands, make sure you have an international driver's license, and also make sure your travel insurance actually covers it because some doesn't.
Mm, yeah.
Another
Mhm.
thing to consider too is that a lot of times they will have checkpoints where they're looking for like helmet use, or maybe checking to see if you actually have a driver's license that's appropriate for it as well.
So next up is adapting to the local culture and knowing some of the etiquette and customs.
Mhm.
It can be rewarding, but there's also a few things to remember. So the first one is make sure that you bring your flip flops or have slip on shoes or
Mhm.
sandals because you will be taking your shoes off constantly.
Mhm.
It's very customary to take your shoes off entering homes, also temples, and even some of the shops. If you have sneakers on, you're going to get kind of annoying. It's going to be a hassle.
Yeah, unless you got like those Velcro ones, like those might be
Yeah.
pretty easy.
Yeah, that's true.
Another thing to think about too is when you're dining out, which of course we're going to do that because the food's amazing. At restaurants and stuff like that, generally speaking, you're going to probably want to expect a little bit more casual service. Just kind of like when you're in Europe, it's you sit down, you kind of have to get the attention of the waiter a lot of times, and they can come over and get you your menu or anything that you need. Also, same with the check. If you want the check, a lot of times you're gonna have to wave someone down to get
Mhm.
that.
Yeah. Also, be prepared for the heat and humidity. Air conditioning really isn't a given.
No.
anywhere in Thailand or Vietnam. Most of the restaurants are open air, and they will have fans though blowing,
Mhm.
especially for the mosquitoes. And then also too, finding an air conditioned gym can be
Oh,
really hard as well.
yes, that was a tough one. I managed to find gyms. Honestly, I didn't end up using any AC gyms at all. And it's because the ones I did find, like in both Thailand and Vietnam, were about twice as expensive as all, or sometimes more than that,
Mm.
than all of the other gyms. So I just found one that had a lot of really good fans like everywhere, and so that's something to think of. But if you do, I think like with the one in Wahin was like 70 US a month or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was quite a bit more.
Mhm.
Whereas the one I ended up going to was I think 18 or $20 a month, and it was like an outdoor one, but it had a good cross breeze and lots of fans, so it worked out pretty good.
Yeah.
So next, let's talk about communicating and starting with your phone. You don't have to have an expensive international plan when you're going to Thailand or Vietnam, as you can get local SIM cards for very affordable pricing. Um, for instance, with that, we definitely recommend, like in Vietnam, that you can find them at the airport, or better yet, just go to like a Viettel store once you get out of the airport. We've actually got a whole video where I kind of break down like the whole process of getting one, a SIM card in Vietnam. Now in Thailand, you can also same thing and get them in an airport, but you're going to be better off going to a 7-Eleven. You get a little better price on them. They're really cheap and they give you plenty of data as well. Just remember, you're going to need to bring your passport in both countries in order to get an actual local SIM card. So another option is using an eSIM if your phone is eSIM capable. And now our advice on this varies, country to country. For instance, in Vietnam, I think I wouldn't use it other than just like a short-term option, like to have one like so as you have data when you land, just to get you by until you can get a local SIM card, because the data plans for eSIM plans in Vietnam can be a lot more expensive. Now for Thailand, on the other hand, they're really not that much more than the like a local SIM card. So you could easily get away with using an eSIM in Thailand if you wanted to do that, as if you didn't want to go down and show your passport and do all of that. We do have a video breaking down like all of the best Thailand eSIMs because we tested a whole bunch of them. If you want to look at that.
Language wise, you'll find that English is spoken quite widely in most of the tourist areas, and a lot of the menus have pictures on them. So if you're at a restaurant, you can you can usually just point to what you want. And then outside the tourist areas, there can be a little bit more of a language barrier.
Mm.
So our number one tip there is to download Google Translate and use the picture mode to if you want to read something or you're looking at a menu. And the locals are actually really used to using it as well. They'll speak into
Mhm.
the Google Translate, and yeah, so that does make it a lot easier to communicate.
So next up, let's talk about kind of like health and safety. This is probably like maybe the two biggest questions that we get asked all the time on the channel, especially for long-term travelers. How safe, and what do you do if you get sick? So honestly, we've felt incredibly safe in both Thailand and Vietnam. And this is even walking around way later than we ever probably should walk for people of our age. Um, but of course, you should always use your common sense. But overall, like in both those countries, crime is also very low. And so you're not going to have to worry about that sort of thing. It's usually going to be crimes of opportunity, like, if you leave your phone somewhere and you're
Mm,
not paying attention and someone grabs it. However,
yeah.
we never even experienced that, especially even in like Da Nang or Bangkok or Hua
Yeah.
Hin or any of those places at all.
Yeah. So in crowded areas, just yeah, keep an eye on your belongings, or maybe even consider having a theft resistant bag.
Mm,
We like to use the ones from PackSafe.
yeah, like one of these.
Yeah, so this is my bag that I carry around all the time. If you want to check that out, we'll have a link in the description below.
And let's also talk about the inevitable, which is gastrointestinal issues. It's not a matter of if, but more like when. Uh, when you're going to have these stomach issues, definitely want to be prepared for that. And of course, if it happens, you're going to be probably out of commission for a few days, or at least not feeling confident enough to leave the house, right? So just again, Make sure you want to stay hydrated. And this actually goes for your entire time there is drink a crap ton of water because you'd be surprised how fast you get dehydrated.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, but anyways, like this happens to almost everybody.
Yeah. So you can easily find medications at pharmacies. We also do prefer to bring a lot of medicine with
Mhm.
us when we're traveling. We always carry Pepto, Imodium, charcoal pills, which we use quite a bit and quite a bit more than we were expecting in
Yeah.
Vietnam.
Yeah. I think it was like, probably every other week, one of us was sick. Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
with gastrointestinal
Yeah.
issues.
Hmm.
So, which is now in Thailand though, we only, I think one time did we get sick. And honestly, I think
Hmm.
that was like just a virus that was going around
Yeah.
because that was when we first arrived.
Yeah.
So, just something to think about. Now, of course, Thailand offers like really good and surprisingly affordable healthcare. You've probably heard about this already, especially in the larger cities, and that's where you're going to find like the bigger hospitals and clinics. For instance, when we were in Hua Hin, there's a big hospital there, and it's known for being a really good hospital because it's basically the one that the king would use when he would visit that area as well. Now, as far as Vietnam is concerned, healthcare can be a little bit less accessible, especially for foreigners and for any more like kind of serious situations. It's definitely a good idea to have some kind of a travel medical insurance. Now, we've actually included a link in the description if you want to just check out the one that we've been using, if that makes it a little bit easier for you. Also, another note is that you're going to have to pay for your care up front. So you definitely want to make sure you have plenty of cash on hand or at least access to cash, which leads us to
Yeah, so that leads us to money. And in Southeast Asia, cash is king there, especially if you're going for street food, any of the local markets or
Mhm.
night markets, any of the small shops, and then if you get out of the tourist areas as well. The currencies can be kind of confusing. You'll be dealing with basically like thousands of Thai baht and
Mhm.
then millions of Vietnamese dong. So make sure that you have a currency conversion app on your phone. This will really help you out.
Yeah, I mean, you also feel like a millionaire there for a little while there. But until you do the currency conversion, then you're very disappointed.
Mhm.
We definitely also recommend having a bank card that does reimbursements for like international ATM fees. It will save you a lot of money over the long run, especially considering that a lot of the ATM withdrawal limits might not be what you're used to, like back in the States or maybe in some other countries. For instance, in Thailand, I think you're limited to about 20,000 baht or about 600 US. And in Vietnam, it was actually much, much lower, where you're getting between 3 to 5 million dong, depending on which bank's ATM you could find, which is about 115 to about $190 US, or at least at the time of filming. Now, one thing that we use is the Charles Schwab uh, debit card. You get one by opening up one of their, I think, the Charles Schwab One accounts or something like that. It's basically the gold standard for international travel. Highly recommend it.
So, next up is food. And I guess, kind of, if we're honest, that's one of the main reasons why we went to Southeast Asia is to experience all of the wonderful food. And yes, it was amazing. It's also really inexpensive
Mhm.
and delicious. Kind of a good rule of thumb, though, is just to eat at more of the busy street street markets
Mhm.
or stalls where they kind of have like a high turnover of placing food out, especially like the grilled food.
Yeah. Also, be aware that Thai food can be a bit spicy, especially if you're not used to that sort of thing. While Vietnamese food we found was generally a little bit milder than that. You can still find the spicy stuff though, especially when you get the fish sauce and all that in there. But also note too that if you have allergies, you want to be real careful about that because there's not, there's a lot of there could be a lot of cross contamination, or again with language barriers, it might be more difficult to know if this has lactose in it or something else like that. And of course, you can also find plenty of great Western foods if you need a change of pace. We've actually had some surprisingly amazing barbecue um, in and steaks in Thailand specifically.
Hmm.
So it might surprise you.
Hmm. This is kind of a big one, and that is dealing with bathrooms. Uh, First is that you'll probably notice that you can't usually flush the toilet paper. There's going to be a small trash bin right next to the toilet for that. Also, get familiar with the bum gun, which is the bidet sprayer, and it mostly replaces toilet paper from what we've seen in most of the public toilets, and it can be quite cold.
Yeah.
Um, and then if you're out in more of kind of the rural areas, you might encounter like some of the squat toilets that, or maybe you've seen on TV. We never saw this, I don't think, but
No.
I'm sure they're probably out there in more of the rural areas.
Yeah.
And
Or
then
like the
also,
parks, like if you
yeah,
go to like a national park or just like back
yeah,
in the States, if you go back to like a big national park, you're going to find more of that kind of
yeah,
toilet there.
yeah. And then also too, just always make sure that you have toilet paper
Yeah.
with you, like in your bag, or yeah, it's just a good rule of thumb to have.
Yeah, because you're not going to find it. Most places don't have any kind of tissues at all.
Yeah.
And so it's very common to carry all of your tissues with you pretty much everywhere you go.
Mm-hmm.
And that even goes for some restaurants we found too, where they might not have napkins, like a typical what we're used to as a napkin. Instead, they actually have like these small like bathroom tissue kind of things as well.
Yeah.
Now for us living in Southeast Asia as slow travelers and kind of digital nomads was a really, really awesome experience. Now it might not always be the picture perfect thing you see on Instagram or maybe some other YouTube videos, if someone's just like only there for a few days, you're not, because the difference is that we're actually living somewhere rather than just visiting for like a week or two. The challenges can be real, but they are far outweighed by the rewards you get, things like affordability, just the warmth of the people, the amazing food, as Michelle, this one can put back a lot of food, believe it or not, and just like the sheer adventure and experience of the culture.
So yeah, if you're considering a trip to Southeast Asia, our advice would be just to go for it.
Yep.
I know I was a little bit hesitant about going, but we absolutely loved it.
Yeah, just go with an open mind.
Yeah.
Again, patience is your number one tool, especially as a traveler, no matter where you go. And also, of course, hopefully these tips will help you a little bit. You'll be a little bit more prepared for when you travel to Asia for the first time. All right, now if you've been to Thailand or Vietnam, then why are you watching this video? This video is for people who haven't been yet. I'm just kidding. If you have, and you have some extra tips, or you think we got something that's a little bit off or whatever, be sure to go ahead and leave a comment below. It helps everybody out.
Yeah, and make sure that you give this video a thumbs up. You can subscribe to our channel, and you can sign up for our newsletter and even our new membership that we have launched on our YouTube.
All right, thank you guys so much for watching, and happy wandering.
Happy wandering. So for Vietnam, it is a little bit different. For the best weather, visit during, oh my gosh. So for Vietnam, it is a little bit different for the weather. The best time to visit is, why can't I get this out? So for Vietnam, it is a little bit different. For the best weather, visit the central and, oh my God, messed that up again. Okay.
So now let's talk about communicating when you're in Asia. Okay. So next, let's talk about communicating. First up, of course, your phone is going to be your number one tool for this. If you're for calling and mobile phone stuff. So next, let's talk about communicating when you're in Thailand or Vietnam. Of course, your phone is your number one tool for this. If you're worried about getting, so next we're talking about communications and of course, how you, okay. All right. Okay. All right. So another thing to know about, another important thing is, of course, communications. And we're talking mostly about like using your phone. Your phone is, oh my God, why is this so hard for me? So let us know if you've been to Thailand or Vietnam. Actually, if you're, oh, okay. I was gonna say, okay, try it again. Okay, ready? I'm gonna still do the joke. I just gotta I gotta do the bit. All right, okay. Now, have you been to Thailand or Vietnam? Actually, if you have, why are you watching this video? This is for people who haven't been yet. Actually, I'm just kidding. If you have, though, be sure to give us some tips that you would add. Okay. Oh, my God. My joke timing is bad.